Imagine an old wooden ship. This is the Ship of Theseus, a famous hero. It sailed for many years across vast oceans. As time passed, its wooden planks began to rot. So, one by one, the old planks were carefully removed. New, strong planks were put in their place. After many voyages and many repairs, a question arose. Eventually, every single original plank of the ship had been replaced. Is this still the Ship of Theseus? Or is it a completely new ship, merely holding the same name and form? What if someone gathered all the old discarded planks and built another ship? Which one then would be the true Ship of Theseus? This ancient puzzle makes us ponder the nature of identity. It challenges us to think about what makes something truly itself, especially when it undergoes constant change. Our own bodies are remarkably like this ancient, ever-changing ship. Your cells are continually dying and being replaced. New cells are born every moment. Over a period of roughly 7 to 10 years, it is said that most of the physical matter that makes up your body is entirely new. The atoms that form you today are not the very same atoms that formed you as a small child. Consider your skin, your blood, even the cells in your bones. They are all part of a constant process of renewal. So are you fundamentally the same person you were a decade ago, when your physical components have been so thoroughly swapped out? This biological flux directly mirrors the perplexing dilemma of Theseus's vessel. It forces us to question our intuitive feeling of a continuous, stable physical self. It is not just our physical bodies that are in a state of perpetual transformation. Our minds too are constantly changing. Thoughts flow through our consciousness like a restless river, never staying still for long. The beliefs and opinions we once held with absolute certainty can soften, evolve, or even be discarded entirely. New ideas take root, and fresh perspectives emerge as we gather more experiences. Memories, which we often think of as fixed records, can become hazy over time. Sometimes we even remember events differently than they actually occurred. Our personality, that collection of traits we call me, can also shift subtly or dramatically with life's many lessons. If our thoughts, memories, and mental landscapes are always in flux, what part of our mind, if any, truly remains constant? This adds another intricate layer to the puzzle of identity. Yet, despite all this undeniable physical and mental change, we generally feel a strong sense of a continuous self. There is an inner feeling, a persistent awareness of I, that seems to endure through all the transformations. You wake up each morning, and you instinctively feel that you are the same person who went to sleep the night before, the same person who lived through yesterday. This intuitive sense of continuity is incredibly powerful and deeply ingrained in our experience. Where does this persistent feeling of being me truly come from, if both our body and our mind are in such a constant state of flux? This is the central mystery, the profound question that beckons us to look deeper, beyond the surface of our ever-altering existence. Western philosophers for many centuries have grappled with this very question of identity. Some thinkers propose that our personal identity is intricately tied to our memories. John Locke, an influential philosopher, suggested that personal identity is essentially a matter of psychological continuity. He argued that as long as you possess consciousness of your past actions and thoughts, as long as you can remember your past experiences, you remain the same person. This perspective places the core of the self firmly within the realm of the mind and its remarkable ability to recall and connect past moments to the present. However, this idea encounters its own difficulties. What about periods of amnesia, or the unreliability of memory, or even the existence of false memories? These issues present significant challenges to the memory-based theory of selfhood. Modern Western thought often turns its gaze towards consciousness itself when trying to understand the self. Consciousness is frequently described as a flowing stream of awareness, a continuous succession of subjective experiences. It is that intimate feeling of what it is like to be you, right here, right now. Many contemporary scientists and philosophers view consciousness as an emergent property. This means they believe it arises from the incredibly complex interactions and workings of the physical brain. The brain, of course, is a biological organ. Like the rest of the body, it is subject to change, growth, and decline. So, if our consciousness, our sense of awareness, emerges from a brain that is itself constantly changing, does that imply that consciousness itself is also fundamentally and perpetually in flux? This remains a pivotal area of ongoing investigation and debate. This prevailing Western view, linking self to a changing brain and a flowing consciousness, presents considerable challenges for the idea of a permanent, unchanging self. If the I is indeed tied to these transient phenomena, then it would seem that the self must also be impermanent, a fleeting process, rather than a stable entity. This can be a rather unsettling notion for many. Furthermore, there is the hard problem of consciousness, a term coined by philosopher David Chalmers. This problem asks the fundamental question of why we have subjective, qualitative experiences at all. It is one thing to describe how the brain processes information, but quite another to explain why it feels like something to be aware, to see red, or to feel joy. Western science and philosophy are still grappling with these profound and elusive aspects of our being. Therefore, within the landscape of Western philosophy, the debate about the nature of the self continues with vigor. Is the I that we feel so intimately simply an illusion, a clever trick played by our complex brains to create a sense of coherence? Is it perhaps a useful narrative, a story we construct and tell ourselves to navigate the world? Or could there be something more fundamental, something more enduring, that underlies our experience of being? The traditional notion of a stable, unchanging core self is often questioned or even dismissed in many modern Western circles. The focus frequently shifts towards understanding processes, functions, and dynamic patterns, rather than searching for a fixed, immutable essence. This ongoing inquiry leaves many individuals seeking a deeper, more satisfying understanding of their own persistent and undeniable sense of being. Far from the bustling philosophical schools of the West, ancient Indian texts known as the Upanishads explored these very same profound questions about reality and the nature of the self. These sacred writings are incredibly old, with some dating back thousands of years, long before many Western philosophies took shape. The Upanishads are primarily composed of insightful dialogues and discourses between wise teachers, gurus, and their earnest students, shishyas. They represent a deep and sustained effort to gain direct knowledge about the ultimate nature of existence, the cosmos, and most crucially, the true identity of the individual. These texts offer a radically different perspective, one that encourages an inward journey of discovery to find the answers. They form the philosophical heart of the Vedas, containing timeless spiritual wisdom. A central teaching of the Upanishads is that the self with which we typically identify in our daily lives is not our true ultimate self. This everyday self, often referred to as the ego, or is composed of our personality, our fluctuating thoughts, our shifting emotions, and our physical body. This is the self that experiences constant change, much like the individual planks of Theseus's ship being replaced over time. It is this apparent self that is subject to the cycles of birth and death, joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain. The ancient sages who authored the Upanishads clearly recognized the impermanent and transient nature of our common everyday experience of I. They passionately urge seekers of truth to look beyond this superficial, ever-changing identity to discover something far more real and lasting. Beyond this fleeting ego, this collection of changing characteristics, the Upanishads speak of Atman. Atman is presented as the true self, the innermost essence residing within each and every individual being. It is described as an unchanging, eternal, and indestructible core of pure consciousness. Atman is often characterized as the silent witness, the serene observer that is aware of all the activities of the body and mind but is not affected by them. It is like the empty space contained within a jar. The jar itself can change its shape, be painted different colors, or even break into pieces, but the space that was within it remains untouched and unaltered. This profound concept of Atman offers a stable foundation for a persistent identity, an identity that transcends the relentless flux of our physical and mental states. So, if we return to our analogy, the physical body is indeed like the ship, constantly being repaired and rebuilt with new materials. The mind, with its thoughts, emotions, and memories, is like the cargo, the sails, and the crew, always active, always in motion, always changing. But Atman, according to the Upanishads, is like the vast, boundless ocean upon which the ship sails, ever present and fundamentally unchanged by the ship's journey. Or perhaps more accurately, Atman is akin to the very essence of shipness itself, the underlying principle that allows us to recognize any collection of planks as a ship, regardless of its age or condition. The Upanishads propose that what we truly are, at the deepest level of our being, is this timeless, formless, and radiant awareness. This is a truly radical shift in perspective, moving away from identification with the temporary and towards the eternal. The profound wisdom of the Upanishads does not conclude merely with the concept of Atman, the individual true self. These ancient texts introduce another equally vital and encompassing concept, Brahman. Brahman is described as the ultimate reality, the uncaused cause, the absolute source and substratum of the entire universe. It is everything that exists, and yet it is also beyond everything that exists, transcending all names, forms, and limitations. Brahman is infinite, eternal, indivisible, and fundamentally unchanging. It is the very ground of all being, the cosmic self, the singular reality from which all multiplicity arises and into which it eventually dissolves. Imagine it as the invisible fabric of existence itself, underlying all the diverse forms and dynamic phenomena we perceive in the world around us and within us. The most profound and transformative teaching found within the Upanishads is the declaration of the ultimate identity between Atman and Brahman. Your individual true self, the Atman that resides within you as pure consciousness, is not separate from, nor different from, the ultimate cosmic reality, Brahman. In their deepest essence, they are absolutely one and the same. It is much like understanding a single wave in the vast ocean. The wave has a temporary individual form. It rises, it crests, it falls. But its true nature, its fundamental substance, is nothing other than water, the very water of the entire ocean. Similarly, our individual consciousness, when realized at its most profound depth, is discovered to be identical with the universal, all-pervading consciousness that is Brahman. This is a powerful statement of non-duality, Advaita, asserting that reality is ultimately one. This extraordinary unity of the individual self and the ultimate reality is powerfully and concisely expressed in the Mahavakyas, or great sayings, which are found scattered throughout the Upanishads. One of the most famous and widely contemplated of these Mahavakyas is Aham Brahmasmi. This concise Sanskrit phrase translates directly as I am Brahman. It is crucial to understand that this is not a declaration made by the limited ego, the everyday personality. Rather, it is the Atman, the true witnessing self, realizing its inherent eternal identity with the totality of existence with Brahman. This profound realization is not merely an intellectual understanding. It is considered the highest form of knowledge, an experiential awakening that leads to liberation, moksha, from the cycle of change, suffering, and limitation. So, who are you truly? The Ship of Theseus, with its replaced planks, makes us question identity in the face of change. Your physical body and your active mind are also in a state of constant flux, as Western thought often emphasizes while grappling with the mystery of a persistent self. But the ancient Upanishads offer a clear and deeply resonant answer. You are not merely the sum of your changing parts, not just the fleeting thoughts or the aging body. You are the unchanging essence, the timeless Atman, which in its ultimate truth is identical with Brahman, the All. The Mahavakya Aham Brahmasmi is a direct pointer to this profound truth. The enduring feeling of a consistent self, that unwavering sense of I amness, arises from this deep underlying singular reality. It is the timeless awareness that serenely witnesses all change, itself remaining forever unchanged. This, the sages tell us, is the ultimate and liberating answer to the age-old question, who am I?